Hello, so you're listening to Meanwhile in the Falklands, which is our podcast number 10. We've finally reached double figures.
Woo!
Well done if you're still with us. So I'm Caiti.
I'm Thomas Stockton.
And I'm Hannah Newton.
So we've got lots to talk about today, don't we, Tom?
Yeah, an abundance of firsts this week.
Oh.
So I think we're going to start chronologically.
Let's go for it.
So considering I stood on the beach and filmed, can you two talk to me about your Midwinter Swim experience?
First ever Midwinter Swim. It was cold and it was icy. And my feet hurt afterwards. That's my quick rundown.
Is that a quick
Yep.
rundown of it? Was it what you expected?
Yes and no. To be honest, I think I'd been scared into thinking that it was going to be really, really cold and horrible, and actually it's all over so quickly, so it wasn't actually as bad as I thought. So I quite enjoyed it.
What about
Yeah, I would say that I really love when everybody comes together, and especially when it's adults in in a situation that gives you a lot of adrenaline, because usually children get that situation all the time, whereas adults never really do unless you're doing something really exciting. So it's really nice seeing adults behaving like kids, that running around the beach getting all nervous, things like that. It was great. But I did make a bit of an error, didn't I?
Yeah, you didn't put your boiler suit on straight away, mate.
didn't.
That was a
Oh.
silly idea.
I'm
And
just
those
sitting
fires
there.
as well. You should have stood by the fires. The like oil cans that were full of, not oil, full of fire.
Wasn't
But
it?
they were
Yeah.
all like in a line, so my plan was to have like my base camp in between the fires, so then when I ran back, I'd instantly be warm.
Yeah, that was a really good idea. I sort of caught short. I ended up talking to someone standing in my swimming costume for about 10 minutes afterwards, and that was a bit of an error. But other than that, I actually really did love it as well.
Well, for those of you that might be listening that haven't been listening for the last 4 weeks, where we've not stopped talking about the Midwinter Swim, it's the middle of winter down here, so you run into the ocean.
But it's for charity. It is for charity. Yeah, that's it. It's not everyone's just not insane and just goes and runs in because they fancy it.
Though you do get a certificate of lunacy
Yep.
signed by the governor. So
I put mine up on my wall. I'm
Is
so
it alright?
proud of myself. And a t-shirt. We got our lovely little t-shirts as well with little penguins on the front, which was nice.
Yeah, nice.
So that was a couple of hours on Saturday, and if you want to watch all of that, subscribe to Falklands in Focus and watch it. Katie put that together this week. It's actually really funny. It's really, really good. But that wasn't it for our weekend of work, was it? We were back at work on Sunday.
Where it was at the start of Farmers Week this week, so we were at the Farmers Week Expo, so we got to go around and see lots of the people that have come into Stanley from camp, and as well there was lots of local businesses that had set up trying to advertise their products to all the farmers that don't usually come in.
I mean, I know we spoke about Farmers Week in the podcast last week, and we were all a bit quite excited about the different things coming up. Hannah, how did you feel about it? Was it what you expected?
It actually wasn't what I expected. In my head, I had it that it was a bit more of a kind of. I didn't realise it was such a almost like a marketing event. To be honest,
like a business fair.
Yeah, it was very, very businessy, and I think obviously that's important, and I think obviously during the week they must have had a lot of socials where it was a little bit more relaxed and stuff like that. But I enjoyed it. It was interesting to see all the different businesses and actually find out what Byron Marine do, because I've heard that name thrown around so many times.
But yeah, the whole thing was a bit different. We didn't actually. We wanted, as we said last week, to get out to loads of different events that were going on, hear some of the talks. We just didn't have time this week, though.
We had a bit of
We've
a
had
busy
a busy
week.
week, haven't we? Lots of things going on in the evening, lots of firsts.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, do we think, carrying on with the theme of first, it's because it was so busy because it was the first week without Paula?
Yep. I think to be honest, I think we were probably thinking like, we need to get loads of stories and make sure that we're busy and that the TV station doesn't crumble without her. So I think we kind of overstretched ourselves a bit. But it was good because now we've got loads of stuff for this week.
Exactly. So we normally aim to get the news programme at about 25 minutes long, and with the bloopers and stuff, I think it's over 30. It's over
35.
It's over 30 this week. So I think exactly as you say. I think
we got a bit excited.
I think we got a bit nervous about like not doing it properly, and then sort of overdid it a little bit. I'm looking at a couple of things going like, I should have done the classic bump it to next week, but but no, that was all right. That was all right. Then Katie, you had your first committee meeting. Is it what you expected?
It's sort of what we were talking about. So it was the planning and building committee, and I mean it's all really important stuff, and I do understand why we do go and things like that. But the thing that really quite interested me was the sort of social situation that happened in that room. Because obviously the committee are all sitting around the table, that anybody's allowed to go in for the first half, including the press, but we all had to sit on the same side of the room. So we weren't allowed to spread out, we all had to sit in a line on the same side of the room. And then we weren't really supposed to talk. And every now and then, after one person had heard what they were there for, they just stood up and left. And it kept on happening and happening until it was just me and the other 2 press people left there. And then eventually they said, okay, we exclude the press, everybody get out, and we all had to stand up and leave. It was interesting.
It's weird though, because that's what the town hall meetings used to be like in Cornwall when I was at university. It was very much a case of you'd come in and you'd pitch what you wanted to say. Once you've said it and the issue's been discussed and it's over with, you could get up and leave. Do you know, it's almost like a place where the public can come in and say, right, I've got this idea, I want to build this, I want to do that. You say your piece and then you go. But
it's quite efficient, really.
It's good. Did you find out anything interesting about new structures being built? Maybe a certain Gypsy Cove? It's a big beach with
cove,
penguins.
Literally. It's a very popular tourist area just like 10 minutes outside of Stanley.
Yeah, so basically a lot of what we were discussing in the meeting was making it more accessible for tourists and for locals. So as in, they're going to put some toilets up there, that was approved in there, which is really good, because at the minute it's just been some temporary solutions, which doesn't really work. And there's also going to be a shelter for when the wind is blowing, and more benches and way markers, things like that.
I really think they should put like a little cafe there or something, because that would be a prime spot.
Even like a little back of the van.
Yeah, or even a back of the van job, because there's so many tourists go there.
I think they do have someone that goes up as like back of the van kind of job during the tourist season.
Yeah.
But I would quite like, as the tourism industry grows here, why not just start setting something? I think something up there with like an enclosed place, because the Falklands is so windy. Like have something that shelters you. Maybe look into like glass panels so you can still look out and see things, and it's not a complete eyesore or something like that. Just with a small cafe with like glass on one side, so you can look out at the beaches. Yeah, something just like that.
Well, they've with the toilets that they've put up, they've made them so that they look, I'm probably not going to use the right words here, but they've made them so that they look as though they fit into their surroundings. So it's like a mound with a grass roof. So when you look at it from one side, you can't tell that it's a building there. It just looks like it's like a grass, just a bit.
Is it already there? Or are they going to put it up? When
this is all what I'm planning, so. But no, that was approved, which is good news.
I'll say don't give away too much, as Caiti will be doing an in-depth piece on what's going on with the Gypsy Cove.
The new bogs.
On the new bogs, yes. There you go. But it's really
piece I've ever done.
But it's really interesting what you say about them trying to make it fit into the surrounding. As Falkland Islands Holiday had someone come down. He's an architect and birder from the north of Norway. A chap called Tormod Amundsen. He came down and he was looking at creating, because the big thing he does is he creates wind shelters for those who want to go out and photograph and view birds. And he started it just in his own business in the north of Norway, and now he's got some places all across. I think he's got a couple in Russia, a couple in China, and a couple in Iceland as well.
That's cool.
So, and he came down here to have a look, and he was talking about how you can incorporate it as to not scare off the wildlife, and it's not an eyesore on the wildlife itself. So
because bird watching's huge here, isn't it? It's a massive thing. And you've been doing your bird fair video.
Yeah, I've been trying to put that together, and we're trying to discuss what the iconic pieces of wildlife were for the Falklands.
Come on then, what did you decide?
Well, before I go into that, I want to hear what you guys actually had to say, because you made a really interesting point before you came to the Falklands. You didn't think of the Falklands as being a wildlife paradise to an extent.
Well, I think the only thing I really thought I thought Falklands-wise, wildlife-wise, was penguins. I know it's very cliche and everyone said, but penguins is the only thing that's almost sounds unusual. Yeah. Maybe not the only thing, but it's one of the things that people always say, they've got penguins, blah blah blah. But I didn't actually realise there's a lot more wildlife here.
Well, I was about to say that. Has your opinion changed since coming down here? Is it still just penguins, or is there?
I think do you know what it is? I think there's a lot of wildlife here, and there's also like whales and dolphins, and I never knew that you could see that here. But it's not very well advertised in terms of I think with tourism and stuff, they could do more to be like, right, we're going to do dolphin watching trips and blah blah blah, and actually get people down here instead of getting people down here for one-day cruises. Get them down and get them staying for a week, 2 weeks. You know, get them to stay a bit longer.
Do you think the place has the accommodation for that though at the moment?
Well, they've got the Malvina. I know the Malvina usually gets fully booked.
Yeah, you got Malvina, and you got some rooms in the waterfront, haven't you?
Yeah, but even if you had a cruise ship that stayed for 2 days, 3 days, you know,
Yeah.
instead of just having day trips, because you can't see the Falklands in a day.
No, you can't.
You really can't. No.
I mean, like, I've been here a year and I haven't seen as much as I want to see, and like.
And I think people underestimate, if you're here on a fleeting visit, you don't really understand what there is here.
Yeah.
They underestimate what there is available to do and to see, and the amount you can actually explore and how big it is.
Yeah. What about you, Caiti? What did you think about wildlife wise? This is why I wanted you to go first, because I wanted to emphasise how much you had to say on it, and then see what Caiti was going to say.
Well, for a long time I've had quite a big phobia of birds. It's irrational.
Birding paradise.
It's irrational, but it's quite a serious phobia that I've had since I was a child. So when I got here, and we've got ducks in our garden, so that was the start of it all. But to be honest, I can appreciate that for other people this is a paradise.
So you're thinking an albatross with an 11-foot wingspan wouldn't be something that like tickles your fancy.
Tom asked me what I thought was the most interesting wildlife here. I said cats and horses.
I mean, I know the cats can be a bit feral, but I wouldn't call it wildlife. Well, veering away from the wildlife part of it and heading towards another first. You did your first court report this week.
It was very interesting. Actually, I quite enjoy going to court, to be honest, but it's the writing up of it that I'm a little bit sceptical of. Because I think knowing my media law is not great, and I need to brush up on that, and that's one of the things that I don't really want to put my foot in it and say something that you can't say, and it's quite, I find out with court reporting it's quite constricted and limited to what you can say. It's not very creative.
And as well, it's about real people in this society. So even if there wasn't that many laws on it, anytime that you write about a person, it can still make you feel you're responsible for what you're putting out there.
Well, exactly. I think if I'd have put something out there that was wrong, or if you haven't noted something down in the court correctly, and it's back to you and it's your fault, it's on your back, and that's why I was a bit like sceptical of writing it. But it's actually a lot more straightforward than I thought.
In terms of moving away from the written side of it, how was actually attending court compared to how it was in the UK?
Different. Court here it's really, really good. It's similar to the UK, but it's a lot smaller. There's one courtroom. It's very small. It's not. It's still formal, but it's not as formal as the UK, and it's not.
Do you think because everyone knows each other, there's always an element, sort of what Caiti was saying about the social side of things in the committee meeting? Do you feel like there's also a social side of thing within the court, because everyone knows who they are? So in the breaks, they chat with each other.
Yeah, it's just strange. But I never understood that with court. Even when I was doing a bit in the UK, I didn't understand how you go from a serious case that's up in the court, and then all of a sudden there's a break, and everyone's chatting and lovely, and then the next minute you're back in court and someone's been sent to prison, and it's all very quick. Do you know? And I think it's not very appropriate or to be joking and laughing in the break when that's someone's life. Do you know? I find it all very strange to get my head around. Like, I've always struggled with that, and like how quickly someone can be sentenced and all of a sudden they're whisked off to prison.
Do you think also potentially that, exactly as you say, it's someone's life and it might not be appropriate to joke and laugh, but do you think also if you're someone whose job it is, or as a journalist it's your job and you go there every week or even every day, do you think almost making light of it in the break is just sort of so that you don't get caught down in a dump of like a coping mechanism of the number of lives you see pass through? If every single one of them was going to bring you down to a certain level, do you think maybe there's an element of coping?
See, I don't think it's that, because I feel when I go to court I feel quite detached from it because I don't know the people, and it's almost like watching a TV show in some respects. You're on the outside. But I don't like the fact that you're sat the press box is so close to the family members of the people who are up for trial, and it's just a bit, I don't know, I've always found it, because even when we were doing it at uni and going in, like, it would always, you'd walk in and you'd get the worst looks from all the family members, and obviously here we don't have jury.
Well, you
regularly.
You do, but not regularly. Yeah, absolutely.
But you'd get that, like, I don't know, it's almost like, oh, you're the journalist, you know, that stigma around being a journalist, and you're trying to make money, like,
Sure, yeah.
It's a bit...
Just to expand on one of the points Hannah just made, there isn't always a jury because it's such a small community. You can, in cases when a jury could be required, you can choose to be judged by a judge or by jury. So a lot of people don't pick the jury because it doesn't work in such a small community.
And I almost sometimes I don't feel sorry for the defendant, but I feel a little bit like if I was in their position and I could see a load of press coming in and trying to write a story about it's weird. It's almost like the press have to be slightly detached from it and a bit hard and a bit like, you know what, we're just writing the facts and blah blah. It's a difficult ethical thing, I think. I don't know.
I know that when I first came down and did my first couple of court reports, I remember I came back and made a phone call home because I found it really difficult sitting in there and sort of, as you say, detaching yourself from it. But you have to do that in so many different jobs in life. It's like if you're a care worker or something like that, so many different jobs, you have to just detach yourself, and it is a really difficult ethical question, I think you're right. It's funny.
But it's almost like, it's like, I obviously it should be reported on because it is open information to the public.
Yeah.
And I know there are reporting restrictions on certain cases and stuff and whatever. But at the same time, if you look at it in like a moral way, should you be sat there writing a story on someone whose life is about to be over, or if they're going to prison, or if they've done something terrible? Do you know?
Now like that's a really interesting point, because then that takes us towards like ethics of journalism. Is it in because the big argument between broadsheet and tabloid is the fact that there is a stigma on it, and it's what is in the interest of the public or what is interesting to the public, and that's where there's such a fine line. Whereas the interest of the public, it's your duty to report it. Whereas if it's just interesting to the public, then it's just gossip, right? And at that point there is no ethical argument.
But that's the thing. There's no rules. There's not a list. Do you know the line is so
it's
blurry?
Guidelines,
it's a blurry line. But I think that's like most things in life, isn't it? No.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And then we move on to another part
swiftly away from that.
Swiftly away from the court
system. Something a bit more happy, hopefully.
Well, I was going to say about happy, but actually I was going to go on to Monday evening. We had Armed Forces Day. I think it's celebrated in the UK and all the Commonwealth countries, specifically in the overseas territory. But it's a really big thing down here because how big the
military presence.
There's
a big military presence. Yeah.
And it's not just like there's only 1,500, 2,000 military staff, like members of the armed forces down here. I think in such a small place, when there's only like 2,500 other people, it's just like you're like, actually it's nearly a 1-to-1 ratio here.
Absolutely.
And they're quite joint with the community. You see them about quite a lot.
But I think this is one of the only, maybe not the only place, but one of the only places where the military are held in such high respect. You know, I think a lot of their presence, having them here, obviously because of the Falklands War and stuff like that, people love them.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's much.
I say there's the odd like disagreement, but apart from that,
but they're doing well to work together, and they're integrated in the community, and they're a big part. And I was quite surprised. And going back to when I first came down here and said I was going to the Falklands, everyone thought, everyone's going to be in camo, and it's all going to be military soldiers and guns everywhere, and blah blah blah. It's not like that, and the people in the military, my opinion of the military's changed a lot since coming, because I think actually they're nice people. But it just depends on. I know there's that whole thing of like, lad mentality, and they're all a bit rowdy and whatever. But meeting Adam, who's our media ops guy, has actually opened my mind a bit to him. And like, actually, he's a nice guy because
you sort of realise there's that.
They're real people.
You sort of realise there's that classic phrase of like the smaller minority are normally the loudest, and you sort of have this perception of what a group of people are, and then you realise that that's only a small group of them.
But also, it doesn't help war films and stuff. Yeah. Do you know war films make them out to be very laddie American war films? It's all. Your opinion of the military, I think, is what you see on TV. If you don't live somewhere like here, where you've got the military presence, you've got no idea. In the UK, you don't really see military people walking around every day, so you kind of judge it on what you've seen on television and what you've seen in the films and stuff. But my opinion's changed. So
I was going to say mine definitely changed as well. And you mentioned the Falklands War. in which there was an art exhibition on last night in memory of someone who passed away during the war. It was the Sue Whitley Memorial Exhibition at the high school. We got to go along to and see some of the GCSE art and things like that. What did you think of some of the work? I went there last year and I was blown away.
Yeah, no, literally, I walked in there and I kind of, you know when you think, oh, kids art, my version of kids art is sick men. Walked in there and it was amazing, absolutely amazing, really good quality stuff. And it's not even just like paintings or drawings, they've also got like woodwork and leather work and stuff, and you think, wow, like these kids are so talented. And it almost made me think, I wish that my art department at school, when I was in school many years ago, had that much more of an extensive budget. Do you know, like we were limited. It was all drawing, life drawing, not life drawing, still life and stuff like that. Oops, edit that out. It was all still life, and it was all very art on a budget.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as creative as here. The art here clearly is a massive thing, and a lot of money is probably chucked into that.
We're seeing now in the UK that even today, like courses like music and art are being underfunded. And it was really interesting speaking to the art teacher last night, who was telling us how like his budget per year per student at GCSE level was about £1.30. That was his budget per student per year.
What can you do with that? Do you know?
Can you do that? You can buy them a pencil and a piece of paper. I mean, it's ridiculous. And there's not a ton more money pumped into art here, but there are a lot less people, and on top of that, the government see it as something important in the education system.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think creativity with kids, having them able to learn in different ways is so important. And if you think about it, if you've got a child that isn't very happy sitting in maths and English lessons, why should you stop them from doing things like PE and art? I think they need to have a full broad choice.
Absolutely.
Because then when you go off to university, they might be going off to do art or something like that, and they need to have the opportunity to be able to show their creative.
Exactly that, and we were discussing it before, and there's still a bit of a stigma.
That stigma of is art a proper degree? Do you know, is art a valid subject?
But there are so many things opening up these days. There's a really interesting TED talk that discusses just that, and it says that things like maths and science and all that they're important, but they were more important in the post-industrial revolution era, when those kind of jobs were in high demand very quickly. There weren't enough people trained in that aspect, and we're sort of getting to the point now where they're really good jobs still today, and those subjects will get you into good jobs, but it's a very big market out there, and the world isn't just relying on engineers anymore. There are so many other jobs
that
go into.
Creative jobs. The creative industry is so much bigger than it probably ever was, I would have thought.
If you have 500,000 people who come out trained as an engineer for 100,000 jobs, you've got 400,000 people who did a really good degree but don't have a job.
Yeah. But even then, I don't even think it's a case of like, if you study art at university or as a subject, it's not you have to go into a career in art.
No,
even having it as like a venting point of relaxation, you're like, right, you know what, I've done my 9 to 5, I need to just chill out, go sit at home, paint, draw, knit, whatever you want to do. That's your way of relaxing.
And it's not
a good thing.
Being good at it either, I think. I think it's just because, I go to the watercolour class down here on a Saturday morning, and I am awful. I mean, really, really bad. Sport is my thing, not art. But I go, and it's like just 2 hours of my week where I sit there, and it's something creative and something artistic.
But it takes your mind, because you're so focused on it, you're not thinking of anything else, and I think it's quite nice. But that's probably similar to sport and stuff like that.
Yeah. Exactly that. And on top of that, those kids bake wonderful cakes, which we've been enjoying
throughout
the podcast this morning.
Well, after all that chat, I think we should probably leave it there, let everybody go back to their 9 to 5. So thank you very much for joining us again this week. You can subscribe at fitv.co.uk if you want to see what you've been listening to. You can also go to our Instagram and Facebook pages for a little snippet of the week every day. And then, if not, then you can catch us here next Friday again on Meanwhile in the Falklands. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.